Welcome to Issues That Matter. I'm Cynthia Pooler. My guest today is Howie Hawkins, and Howie and I are going to have a discussion about Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore made comments about you, and would you kind of elaborate on what I titled the show and what he said and your thoughts on it?
Well, for the umpteenth time last week, and you sent me the clip, he was actually on somebody else's podcast, but he called me a CIA agent.
Right.
And that's a baseless smear. In fact, that's called snitch jacketing. You accuse somebody of being an agent, a snitch. And it's what the CIA and the FBI actually do. And its purpose is to discredit and movement leaders by increasing distrust and fear and factionalism in movements. So, it's a pretty disgusting and mean-spirited thing he did and has been doing, and I'm not the only target. His sort of business model is to attack progressive leaders, Bernie Sanders, AOC, Greta Thunberg. And I think, what he's playing to his audience is, we're sort of in on the secret that, we're the only, pure people, we're superior, we're not sold out. And but I think what it does is confirm them in their cynicism and inactivity. That, getting your hands dirty in these movements is maybe not worth it. So it's, it's really a scourge on progressive movements, this kind of, smearing of people. So, he's got 1 million viewers and, I'm just a little old retired Teamster here in Syracuse. So hard to answer that kind of charge.
I've watched a lot of his videos and I've seen him in person at the Cohoes Music Hall. And my impression has always been his heart is in the right place and that he's for unity and working people and he doesn't like any superficial stuff. So when he said that, I was kind of taken aback because you and I have known each other for a number of years. And I know, the people that Mark Dunley and Dan Platt and Peter Lavinia. And I never picked up that you were subversive in any way. So when I heard that, I was like really dumbfounded because we've talked many occasions. So has he done this to you in the past? Has he called you a CIA agent in the past?
Yeah, he has. He did it recently. He had Chris Hedges on his program talking about Cornell West. And he gratuitously brings me up and implies I'm, CIA. And, that's just what he does. I mean, during the 2020 presidential campaign, he was constantly calling me the death of the Green Party and claiming he did a fundraiser for me, which he never did. That was related to the 2018 gubernatorial campaign. He called me a Russiagator as if I was repeating, Hillary Clinton's excuses for losing the 2016 election. He said I was afraid to go on his program, and my press people kept saying, I'm ready to come on your program. And, finally, actually, a lot of his viewers, were demanding that he interview me. So he did. But it was, disrespectful. I mean, he let me lay out my program, but then he was asking me questions about where'd you get that accent? And last question he asked is, when are you going to stop believing the CIA? Kind of a leading, disrespectful question. So he's been doing this for a long time. But like I said, it's part of his, I don't think his heart is in the right place. He's a businessman. He's cultivated this audience on cynicism and conspiracy theory. And I think, it pacifies people because it makes them feel like, all the people that we think are progressives are really, compromised. And so people, watch his show and I think they go away thinking, well, I know the inside story. So, I'm not going to get my hands dirty, actually organizing, going out and dealing with the real world. So it's made him a rich man. There was, publicity when he bought a $2 million compound in Studio City in San Fernando Valley, 5 bedrooms, et cetera, a few years ago. So I think it's his business model.
A lot of people watch the commentators on the internet because they want a different view than what they hear on TV and see on TV. But if the facts are going to be fudged, there's really no difference on whether you watch MSNBC, CNN, Fox, or if you put the internet on and you hear people slandering other people with no basis, no facts, right?
Well, that's the problem. If you want to get people watching your podcast, one way to do that is create controversies. The old saying, if it bleeds, it leads.
Mhm.
And so, people, some audiences are attracted to that enough to, provide a lot of subscribers to people with these podcasts. So any media that we consume, we have to check on, what they said, look for other sources. For example, somebody sent me a clip where Dore was saying that vaccinations do not slow down the spread of COVID and cited a CNN headline. And I said, well, I missed that. I got to go look for that. And it turns out that headline was up for a little while, but CNN changed it because it mischaracterized what the story was about. And 6 months later, he's using the original CNN headline to make his point. And that kind of, dishonesty and manipulation of viewers, I think, is really disgusting. It's one thing to, have a critical mindset and question what's going on. It's another thing to misrepresent what's going on.
Now, he was on somebody else's YouTube channel when he said that, the one that I saw. So the lady that he was conversing with, she didn't do anything to defend you, to say, how do you know this? And it's people are allowed to say stuff and then not called to account for it. What's your opinion?
Well, like I said, that a lot of these podcasters, they want, controversy, and that attracts people to their channel. And this podcaster had Dore on as a guest. She wasn't there really, trying to critically, deal with what he was saying. She was just letting him speak. And she wasn't really a reporter. She was a podcaster.
Mhm.
So, people have to understand, what's going on instead of just take at face value everything they hear.
But 2024 is going to be so important. I mean, if Biden and Trump do a rematch, both of them, I think, are tainted in a way. And I don't think either candidate should be in the arena right now. And for a podcaster or a commentator on the internet to criticize third-party candidates or somebody who's willing to take the challenge, right now, I don't think that's called for. Would you agree?
Well, any of us who, step into the public arena should be, critically examined and, questioned, but not lied about. And you're right. I mean, what a dismal choice, Biden and Trump. There are no real solutions for, working people in this country, poor people, people that want peace. It's, more militarism abroad and austerity at home from either of the candidates. And there's certainly differences, Biden is pro-choice and Trump is anti-choice.
Mhm.
And, Trump, his rhetoric is, scapegoating, people of color and immigrants and women and LGBTQ people.
Mhm.
And Biden is not. So there are differences, but when it comes to the, real crises we have of people having a hard time making ends meet, the climate crisis, the new nuclear arms race, neither candidate offers solutions. So, we do need alternative voices. And I just hope that, it looks like Cornell West is going to be the Green Party candidate. I hope Jimmy Dore doesn't turn on him. That would be, just very cynical. And, I'd hate to see that happen.
Because I spoke to one of your friends here in Albany, and I mentioned West and running for president, and that person didn't think that he was going to follow through and actually run for president on the Green Party line. So if that's the case, then people like Jimmy Dore, who are getting so excited about West, who ultimately, according to your friend, will not really engage in presidential politics, that makes the pundits pretty, I don't want to use the word dumb, but, it leaves me wondering why they're going out on a limb for somebody who might not follow through.
Well, I think it's a legitimate question of Cornell West. His history has been mostly supporting Democrats in presidential elections. He did support Ralph Nader in 2000, but he went back to Al Sharpton and then John Kerry in 2004. And then
Wait, stop there. You said that he supported Al Sharpton
in the primaries in 2004, the presidential primaries.
He did.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then when Kerry won the nomination, he supported Kerry against Nader. He's one of the prominent voices against Nader. And then in 2016, he supported Sanders and then Jill Stein, the Green Party candidate. But in 2020, he was all in for Biden and, opposed to my campaign. So I think it's a legitimate question. I happen to have had a good conversation with him last night. I think he's in. And so while it's a legitimate question, I think, he will follow through and run a campaign right through to the end. So, it's a legitimate question, but I think he's going to answer it in the, coming months.
I think people are so concerned with personality, but nobody's, a lot of people might not be questioning what West's qualifications are. He might have impeccable qualifications, but people are so concerned today with personality that nothing else matters. That's how I feel.
Well, the fact that he's, somewhat of a celebrity, certainly in progressive academic and movement circles, is an advantage. It's one I didn't have. I'm a nobody from Syracuse. I'm a retired Teamster warehouse worker. I've been active in the movements, but it's not like I've been in the media like Cornell West has been for many years. So that begins to get him attention right away. And he's got, since he announced, he's got more coverage in both the mainstream corporate media as well as the social media than I got in my whole campaign. So, we were talking like, how does he maintain that? Now that the narrative is going to be focused around pretty much the Republican primary until that's settled. And then, he'll be called the spoiler by a lot of people who are worried about the right-wing Republicans, and how is he going to answer that? So I think, that's what we're facing. But the fact that he's a celebrity, is a plus in terms of being a candidate, because it does get you more attention from the media.
Ronald Reagan was a celebrity when he ran for governor, and then he ran for president. Does being a celebrity qualify for a higher office?
No, I don't think it qualifies you, but it gets you a platform in which to make your case. So, the case is, people will say, well, Cornell West has never held public office, hasn't run a campaign himself before. But with, people around you, you can do that. Ronald Reagan basically articulated the values and, key demands of his, perspective, but didn't know much about the details. I mean, another example is George W. Bush, where somebody asked him where some country was on the map, and he looked real puzzled. But, aides will tell him where it's on the map. So I don't think having that experience disqualifies somebody. It's a question of, are you able to articulate the basic values and policy demands? And then if you are elected, can you get the people around you that can help you implement what you want to do? So I think not having that kind of experiences, it's a negative, but it's not insurmountable. I guess I'll put it that way.
So when I sent you that video and you listened to it, how did it make you feel? Were you surprised? Were you angry? What was your reaction?
Oh, just shaking my damn head. I've heard this a lot from Jimmy Dore and his imitators, and shaking my damn head because, he talks about working class unity, but then he denigrates what he calls wokeism. He's anti-woke, which means really he's anti-Black, anti-feminist, anti-LGBTQ, anti-immigrant. He plays to that. He sort of starts with the left-wing, instinct, but comes out with a right-wing populist position. I mean, another clip somebody else sent me is, when we got to Juneteenth, he and his sidekick were denigrating Juneteenth really in an ignorant way. They didn't know what the hell Juneteenth was or how it came about. I mean, in the past, he's denigrated Martin Luther King birthday, saying, well, it's just a symbol and it didn't really help Black people. But, Black people, have a high regard for Martin Luther King. To denigrate him is really telling them that, what they think doesn't count. So, if we're going to unite the working class, we got to take care of the, racial, gender, and sexual orientation divisions within the class. If we just say, well, we're not going to deal with those things in the interest of unity, people of color and women and LGBTQ people are going to say, these people aren't for me. They're not going to defend my rights. So it's actually divisive. But, Dore provides a platform for a lot of these, right-wing type people. I mean, he's uplifted, for example, Tucker Carlson is some kind of truth teller. Tucker Carlson is probably the most effective and widespread purveyor of the great replacement theory. It makes, white people fear that the immigrants are taking over or people of color are taking over. He defended Scott Rittenhouse, that kid that killed a couple people during the George Floyd demonstrations in Kenosha, Wisconsin. He had a Boogaloo boy on his program and, sort of concluded that, well, we really agree on, some of these economic class issues when, that's a racist, far-right, violence-prone organization. So I think it's a real problem. I think, this so-called populism that's anti-left and really leans right is not the way we want to go. We have a history of that in this country. George Wallace, for example, he sounded very good on the economic class issues in 1968 and 72, while he was scapegoating, Black folks for all the problems we have.
So do you think we're going to see more of this kind of journalism on the internet as 2024 evolves?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to stop. There's a whole ecosystem of these podcasters and bloggers who build audiences based on this kind of cynical misinformation.
From your perspective, who do you find credible?
Well, people that are interviewed, I'm just thinking right now, Democracy Now! And a lot of their guests are credible. I don't agree with all their guests, but they bring in people that know what they're talking about and let them explain their positions. I'm thinking, their discussion of what happened in Russia over the weekend with the Wagner mutiny.
Mhm.
And they had an expert from, I think it was NYU, who's been studying Wagner and these far-right formations in Eastern Europe. They had a Ukrainian socialist who gave his perspective, and his name's Dennis Pilash. I know him. He's very well informed. They had Nina Khrushcheva, the great-granddaughter of Nikita Khrushchev, who's a political scientist. I think she's at NYU too, but she's actually in Moscow right now. And I thought, those were people worth listening to, and they have experience and a record. And you need to listen to people like that, and then, see how their positions have stood up over time, and whether they're internally coherent and whether they correspond with the facts. I mean, that's the way you got to, consume the media. You just can't. Unfortunately, I think too many people sort of get the sources they rely on, and then they listen to what those sources say without looking underneath to see if what they say actually, pans out when you look at the facts on the ground. So I think you got to consume all media critically, and look at your sources and check on them. And over time you will find sources that you find reliable and sincere, and others that are not reliable and sometimes cynical. They're selling a brand. They're not really trying to tell you the truth.
That's a good way of putting it, because the internet is an alternative media source, and I think the truth should be said on the internet, because it's certainly not said on cable TV, right?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, cable TV is so superficial. I mean, CNN, NBC, MSNBC, Fox, their usual format is to give you a line or two of news, often breaking news, and it's really not that big a deal. And then they bring on 3 or 4 talking heads who talk it to death, and you don't learn anything more. It's,
Right.
I find it a waste of time.
So you have never confronted Jimmy Dore then, person to person?
Well, the first time we talked, Randy Critico was starting his program down there, and I was at the Brooklyn Commons. He had invited me. He wanted to interview me about my gubernatorial campaign. And then on spur of the moment, mercurial character that Randy Critico is, he'd had Jimmy Dore on as a guest via the internet. And then he asked Dore to interview me. And Dore didn't know me from anybody.
Okay.
And it kind of reminded me of who was that interviewer that used to be on late night, and then he was on RT. I can't remember his name right now, but it kind of looked like Jimmy Dore. It reminded me of that, because that interviewer sort of famously said he never prepares. He just sort of wings it and plays it spontaneously. So I thought Jimmy Dore gave a decent interview. And then he subsequently endorsed my campaign. And he claims he did a fundraiser. Maybe he's confused. He thinks that he was speaking at a fundraiser for me when it was actually Randy Critico's program. So that was in 2018. And then the only other time was toward the end of the 2020 campaign, when a lot of people were lobbying to have me on after saying I wouldn't come on. He had me for that interview, maybe in October of 2020, which was, as I said, he let me lay out my program, but he asked some pretty disrespectful questions, just a negative attitude.
Mhm. So people who are concerned about 2024, do you have any words and anything to tell them that might enlighten them about um who to listen to and what to listen for is more important?
Well, listen to who is addressing, the real crises we're facing of climate, nuclear arms, poverty and inequality, which is a life or death issue. People forget that our our life expectancies are declining in this country. And a lot of that comes out of inequality and poverty. People having to choose between paying their rent and utilities or going to the doctor and maybe getting a medical bill. I know cases around here where in Syracuse where people made the choice not to. One guy I know, he decided he was going to, in April, pay off his utility bills instead of buy his kidney medicine. And he died from kidney failure that month. And that's the kind of position we're putting people in. So I'm just saying inequality and poverty are life or death issues. And, see who's really addressing those. And I think, Trump and Biden are not. They're just going to give you rhetoric. Trump will promise the world with no idea of how to implement it.
Mhm.
And he'll say he cares about people, but he has no policies. And Biden, he's out there right now touting the fact that the economy is growing, but not addressing the fact that the growth is going to the top. And working people and poor people are not, their situation is not improving.
Mhm.
And people are put in these choices where, 60% of the people are a paycheck away from a financial crisis. So they're barely making ends meet.
Mhm.
So look for people. And, I think Cornell West is probably going to be the one best addressing those issues.
Mhm. And you think he's going to go the distance?
I think so. I think he's in. And I don't know exactly how he explains 2024 is different than 2020. The far right has more state power. They've got control of these state legislatures in about 20 states,
Mhm.
and they're passing laws that interfere with fair elections, suppress voting rights. And I think one of the criticisms that Cornel West should make is that Biden and the Democrats failed to pass what was their top priority. It was called House Resolution 1 when they came in, when Biden first came in, and it was, a bill to defend voting rights. And as it was amended, as the Republicans were making these law changes in those states to protect elections. And because they wouldn't take on the filibuster, or at least carve out an exception for these bills, which has been done over 100 times in the past, we don't have those protections that we could have got. And so Cornell should be the champion for voting rights and election protection. And as well, I think he's going to be asked, well, you're the spoiler, you're going to elect Trump or whoever the Republican is.
Mhm.
And his answer should be, well, I'm the only candidate with the way to get rid of the spoiler problem, and that is a national popular vote for president using ranked choice voting. And
Mhm.
if he's not in the race, nobody's raising that issue. So hopefully he will be able to put the democracy question front and center and provide people with a real alternative.
So do you think that the political pundits on social media are more concerned about personality than they are with the issues?
I think they're mostly concerned with building their audience. And many of them will, be cynics about how they do that and create controversies or, smear people like me because it might build their audience rather than deal with, real policies. Or, if they have questions of me, have me on and let me answer them instead of talking about me behind my back to a million people.
So has Jimmy Dore invited you on his program?
Not since 2020. No.
Okay. Okay. So as this cycle evolves, would you come back and give your commentary on what's going on?
Of course, I'd be happy to.
And this is an invitation for Jimmy Dore. I met Jimmy Dore a couple of weeks ago in Cohoes. Jimmy has my email address. So if he hears this, he's got my contact information. Please, Jimmy, I offer an invitation for you to come on and talk about whatever you feel is important, whether it's Howie, whether it's Cornell West, or anything else. You are welcome on my show anytime you want to come on. So, Howie, it's been a pleasure talking with you. We'll talk again. This is Cynthia Pooler. This is Issues That Matter. If you like this show, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. And Howie, thanks for being on. Thank you, everybody, for listening.